Welcome, my name is Lucy and welcome to my yoga YouTube page. So lovely to have you here. So this video is going to be mainly around breathing, and on my Instagram and probably I will upload them to YouTube as well. I've done some videos around breathing and our diaphragmatic breath and breathing into the full 360 volume of our whole lungs. So this practice is really around being able to access that. So we're not going to really be doing much movement. It's more of a grounding breathing practice. So what you'll need is I've actually got a blanket over my mat just because I like lying on a blanket, and also just having a blanket that we'll use a bit later in the practice. If you don't have blankets, you can use a belt or a strap, or just anything that you can basically bring around um, your ribs later in the practice. I've also got a bolster here, and if you don't have a bolster, you can use a pillow or a cushion that will work just as well. And if you don't have anything like that with you, then that's okay. You can just lie on straight onto the floor. So we're going to start lying down on our backs. So coming to your mat and just finding an easeful way to come down to lie onto your back. And just removing any props or anything in the way for now. And coming down into a comfortable position, but you may want to come into your constructive rest, which is where you have your knees pointing up towards the ceiling and the feet on the ground. And see if this is comfortable, so you can bring your feet together and then step your toes out and step your heels out. And then your feet will be around hip width distance apart. And that just allows the legs to really support the pelvis and have equal kind of weight in each leg. But if you want to bring them out further or closer together, or just see where there's a position for you where your feet are comfortable. You can also lie straight, flat down as well, with your legs out extended. And when you found your comfortable position, starting to become aware of how you've arrived on your back, taking in the room, or if you're outside, the atmosphere of where you are around you, noticing the temperature, the energy or the feeling of the space where you are. Really starting to land and arrive into this practice and giving yourself the permission to be in this practice for the next 25 to 30 minutes, taking this time for yourself and your lungs, your heart, your whole body. And then starting to become aware of your physical body. So noticing any sensations, and if it's useful, maybe bringing awareness to the toes and all the way up the feet, the heels, ankles, up the legs to the knees, upper legs, the pelvis, the back of the body, the spine, all the way up to the head, up around the back of the head, and then tracing down the face, the forehead, the cheeks, the jaw, allowing any tension to release from these areas. Down the front of the body, along the shoulders, the arms, each hand and fingers, along the chest and the belly. Noticing how the back of the body is positioned on the earth here. Noticing each half of the pelvis. Noticing what areas of the spine touch the earth and which are slightly elevated off the earth. And allowing the belly to be soft here, so letting go of any holding or tension in this area if you can. Just being easeful, so there's no judgment or strain here to be any way or let go of anything if that's not possible for you today, just allowing everything to be as it is. Becoming aware of the whole body as you rest here on the earth. And then start to bring awareness to your breath. First, bringing awareness to the breath as it enters the body through the nose. And throughout this practice, seeing if we can breathe through the nose. But if your nose is blocked today, or there's any reason you can't do this, then allowing the breath to also breathe through the mouth. If possible, keeping that mouth closed and breathing through the nostrils. Tracing that line from the nostrils down into the lungs. Without changing anything about your breath, just noticing where the breath is landing in the body. Noticing what areas of the body are moving with the breath. Throughout this practice, we want to keep our breath easeful, so we're not straining, we're not trying to make our breath, we're not trying to change our breath or make it deeper or slower. We're just going with whatever feels easeful and the natural rhythm of our breath. And if you have a bolster or a pillow or maybe a cushion or even some blocks, bringing this now under the feet, allowing this to be easeful. And then coming back down into that constructive rest position. Just bringing your body to a position that feels good for you with your feet on the bolster or elevated surface. And if this is uncomfortable or doesn't feel right, then allowing to let that go, that's absolutely fine. And then settling back down. Again, noticing the body, noticing the breath. And we're going to place our hands onto our ribs here. So our rib cage above the belly, above the navel. Placing your hands onto those ribs, the side ribs. And then allowing the breath to be easeful here. We're first just bringing some awareness to this area through our touch. Allowing the brain to start making that connection to the rib cage. As we start to make this connection, start to bring awareness to where the hands are placed. Really thinking about breathing into the hands. And this starts to allow us to breathe into our rib cage. There's lots of different ways and areas we can breathe into in our body, and none are right or wrong. But a lot of the time we have a tendency to breathe into our upper chest or maybe our belly all the time. And sometimes the area of our ribs actually gets ignored. So this just allowed some attention to be brought to this area. And after the next few breaths, you may want to start giving some extra feedback to your lungs. So as you breathe out, breathing into your hands, and as you breathe, as you allow the exhale to come out, breathing your hands in, and maybe giving a slight push of the ribcage. So again, as you breathe in, breathing into the hands, and then as you exhale, maybe giving a slight push with the hands to help the ribs coming into the body, condensing down. Taking this a few more times with your own breath, so breathing into the hands and then maybe giving that feedback and pushing as you exhale. And this is just a gentle push. I'm not trying to crush our lungs or push too hard. We're just trying to give a slight bit of feedback. Start mobilizing the movement of those lungs. Three more breaths like this. Feeling free to remove the hands or maybe give more feedback and increase the strength of that push slightly. Allowing the inhale and exhale to elongate as is natural for you. Once you've done your 3 breaths, letting the arms come back to your side. Again, just noticing where the breath is entering the body and leaving the body, where the breath is moving your body. Noticing if that's changed, noticing how you're feeling. You may notice your stomach is rumbling or making some gurgling noises, and that's awesome. That's just us coming into that rest and digest state, that relaxation state. And on the next breath, we're going to roll onto one side. And just taking some time on your side here. On the next breath or two, pushing up from that hand, pushing up easily, coming up into a comfortable seated position. And then we're going to take our bolster, or if you've got a pillow or a cushion, or maybe a rolled up blanket, bringing that sideways, and where we had our hands on our rib cage, we're going to bring one side of our rib down onto that bolster. So allowing the bolster to be just slightly under that armpit, and then feeling into that rib cage, allowing that to really come onto your surface. And then from here, maybe you might have another blanket or a cushion, and you can bring that down to allow the head to rest. Just finding that spot where the bolster is under the ribs, the head is supported. The legs can be out long or they can be in whatever feels good for you. And once you found your position, you feel supported and comfortable. Starting to take some breaths here. Noticing where the breath is entering and leaving the body again. And as we practice, if your mind starts to wander, just being kind and gently bringing it back to the breath. Bring your awareness back to your body. From here, you might like to place your top hand and place it on that top rib cage. Again, this just gives some feedback to the ribs, to the lungs. Maybe starting to breathe into that hand. Inhaling, expanding, exhaling, condensing. Again, maybe giving some feedback to that upper rib cage. So as you inhale, inhaling into that hand, and then as you exhale, the hand might gently help push the rib cage inward. So as we inhale, the ribs come up and out. And as we exhale, they come in, down and inward. Breathing into the hand and then gently pushing, condensing in. Maybe closing down the eyes, feeling into the body. Noticing how this position really helps to fit into one side of the rib cage. The full side of the lungs. Bringing the attention not only to the front of the body, but the full side of the body here as well. 3 more breaths on this side. After your 3 breaths, allowing that hand to come back down. Noticing bringing awareness to that side body. And we're going to take this on the other side. So for you, you might just want to roll over and kind of set up on the other side. I'm going to come up and come around just so I'm still facing the camera and facing you. Maybe you want to do this too if you want to be looking at the screen. So bring this round. I'm going to take another blanket under my head. Again, finding your comfortable position, so really allowing that rib cage that we're just breathing into to come down onto the bolster. Arm coming down to the side. You're creating a pillow for the head. And if you don't have pillows or anything, you can just kind of rest onto your hand here as well. Coming down, finding your comfortable position. where the bolster is under that rib cage area. Again, breathing, just noticing, not trying to change the breath in any way. Condensing and expanding rib cage. You may want to take that hand up onto the ribs. Start to just bring some attention to this area. Where we bring our awareness is where our brain will start to make that connection. Touch is a great way to do this. As we touch the side of our ribs, our brain starts to create that stronger connection. Start to notice that we can breathe into more parts of our lungs and really expand into the full volume of our lungs. And then maybe allowing that hand to give feedback, so breathing into the hand. And as you exhale, breathing out, pushing down, just giving some gentle feedback to that rib cage. Maybe taking 10 to 15 more breaths here, and I'll leave you in silence to really feel into this experience. Next few breaths, allowing that hand to come down. Staying with the awareness. Sometimes this practice can make you quite sleepy. Next few breaths, pushing up. I'm going to come to seated. And with any of these positions, feeling free to stay for as long as you want breathing. We can never breathe for too long. Bring awareness to our breath. And then taking that blanket or maybe that strap, or if you have a belt, we're going to bring that around the back of our body. Bring it to where we've been feeling into our lungs. So higher up from the navel, around those ribs. Allowing that to give some feedback to the back of the body here. And you can come into a comfortable seat however you want. We're not going to stay here for too long. Starting to breathe and noticing the feedback from the back of the body here. Bringing awareness to the back of our ribs. And I do like doing this with a blanket because it kind of gives me that sensation of being hugged almost through the rib cage. The back of our lungs is an area that we sometimes ignore or aren't as aware of. Especially being on the back of our body, we sometimes forget that the largest volume of our lungs is actually in the back of the body. So being able to bring awareness here and breathing to this area is so great for that diaphragmatic breathing and our 360 breath. And then you can either stay in this position or taking your strap, your blanket, and just making kind of wrapping around or maybe tying your strap together. You can bring your bolster or your cushion or your pillow, and we can actually come down to lie on this surface, so allowing there to be a kind of cushion from the head for the head as well. I'm just going to come to lie down so that the front of the body is condensed on the bolster. And as you're here, starting to again really breathe into that back body. Allowing the feedback from the strap or the blanket or whatever you have tied around you. This just makes it easier then to place our hands here, but you can place your hands here if you'd like to. You can give that same feedback with your hands or just allowing them to relax. Again, taking maybe another 10 breaths here, really breathing into that back, the lungs, back of the body, bringing your awareness and full attention into this area. Keeping the attention on the breath and the back body. Couple more breaths in this position. And then as you're ready, you can either stay here just to do our final grounding shavasana. You can roll off your bolster, just placing that to one side, and come to lie on your back. As you come into your final shape, noticing what you notice, noticing how you might feel compared to at the start of the class. allowing that awareness of the breath to stay with you, and knowing that the breath is always there for you. When you find times of stress in your day, or noticing that you're breathing into the upper chest, you can always just bring your hands to these areas of the body to come into that deeper breathing, that calming breath. And you can stay in your Shavasana for as long as you like here. I recommend at least another 4 or 5 minutes. Aroha Mai, Aroha Atu, love and compassion received, love and compassion given. Enjoy your Shavasana, and thank you for joining me today.